My favorite candidate for the Houston Texans is finally on the schedule. Let's talk about what exactly the potential interview with Nick Caley, the Rams offensive pass game coordinator and tight ends coach, means for the Houston Texans. Welcome into the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans. We'll also get you the latest from Mobile, Alabama. I'm on the road, as you see, not the normal studio, but here for the Senior Bowl to talk a little football with the folks around the Reese's Senior Bowl. And, of course, keep you up to date on what the Houston Texans are looking at and doing. We'll get to the Senior Bowl stuff here in a moment because the Houston Texans have scheduled an interview with my favorite offensive coordinator candidate, my top choice for the offensive coordinator job, and that is Rams tight end coach and pass game coordinator Nick Caley. Albert Breer with the first report of the Sean McVay disciple, Nick Caley getting the opportunity. A little history for you on Nick Caley, and then talk a little bit more about why I'm excited for him. So Caley is in his second year with the Los Angeles Rams, and he is in his second year with the Rams after spending time with the New England Patriots since 2015 all the way up to 2022 in a variety of different spots, including a tight ends coach, offensive assistant, fullbacks coach. Tight ends coach was the final position he held in New England with the Patriots. And then that offseason, he actually interviewed for the Texans offensive coordinator position. And it was him, Bobby Slowick, and Cliff Kingsbury who interviewed for the position. Ultimately, it went to Bobby Slowick. Here we are 2 years later. Bobby Slowick fired. Nick Caley set to get another interview with the Texans. After he left the New England Patriots, Caley went and was on Sean McVay's coaching staff, initially as just the tight ends coach, and then this past year, the tight ends and pass game coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, last year, Caley had the chance to go back to New England. Gerard Mayo and the Patriots wanted him to be the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots last year. They were going to draft a quarterback. They needed to put some good coaches around Gerard Mayo, and ultimately, Caley turned it down. Albert Breer reported that Caley turned down up to $3 million, $3 million to be the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots last year. And he stuck around with Sean McVay. So the McVay tutelage and being now in the McVay tree is one of the main things that I like about Nick Caley. You look at what Sean McVay has been able to put together from a coaching tree standpoint, and a lot of these guys, even without the experience of calling plays, a lot of these guys have ended up being really good hires for their team. So you think about Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, now Liam Cohen in Jacksonville. He was a McVay guy before he went back to college into the NFL, and now he's the head coach in Jacksonville. Jed Fish is a guy that coached under McVay and has been a head coach in college at two different spots. That McVay tree has some juicy results that it has put out. And that is what excites me about Nick Caley, is he's got some really good seasoning from the New England Patriots days. So coaching under Josh McDaniels, but now gets a new look, a new outlook. And when you think about what you want modern offense to look like right now in the NFL, you want it to look like what Sean McVay is able to do. I mean, look how easy it was for McVay when Goff first got going, how easy it looks for Stafford when the protection holds up on the offensive line. I just really like that element of Nick Caley, and I like that instead of taking an offensive coordinator job, he stuck around with McVay for one more year, got the seasoning of being the pass game coordinator, which is involved in helping putting together the offense, and knowing when to take a job and knowing if you're qualified or ready for a job is an important skill in coaching. Sometimes guys just take the job because they may not get another opportunity. Caley knew, hey, I get this opportunity this year. If I'm good this year, the Rams are good this year, then I'm going to get an opportunity next year. And here he is with two of the top jobs for the offensive coordinator position on the market, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Houston Texans, both wanting to talk to him and potentially hire him as their offensive coordinator. Another element of Caley that I really like about what he brings to the table is I like tight ends coaches. Tight ends coaches have to coach not only the receiving element of tight ends, but they've got to be familiar with how the offense operates from a pass blocking standpoint, because tight ends are involved in that, and a run blocking standpoint, because tight ends are involved in that. So you've got to coach all those things up, and it gives you a nice wide base to understand the offense and to help operate the offense. You add in the fact that for a season, he was officially the fullbacks coach as well. That's another element of the run game that you've got to be totally and fully aware of. And, oh, by the way, the pass game, because fullbacks often pass block as well. Easy for me to say. Fullbacks often pass block as well as bring the heat in the run game. So that's a varied little background there. Being a tight ends coach, having the job to coach up guys on the offensive line, or kind of like the offensive line, coach up guys from a kind of like the offensive line from a pass blocking and run blocking standpoint, and coach up the receiving element. So got to be in your routes, got to be able to break this, got to be able to do that, got to be able to sit, and all the various things that you need to do to coach up a guy to be a successful pass catcher and to go out there and be a successful blocker. That's what I like about Nick Caley. Here are my concerns about Nick Caley. No candidate is foolproof, obviously. No candidate is without their faults. Here are my concerns about Caley. He's never called an NFL offense. He's never, to my knowledge, called offense at any level. He went from playing at John Carroll, which if you recognize the name, you should. That's where Nick Caserio went to school. That's where Frank Ross went to school. That's where Josh McDaniels went to school. It's where a variety of executives in the NFL went to school. And then he was coaching at John Carroll pretty much when he was done with his playing career. And then he's been a graduate assistant, administrative assistant, secondary coach, graduate assistant, secondary coach, and then boom, in New England as an offensive assistant in 2015, and then gets up to the tight ends coach job in 2017. So it's likely that he's never called the offense. He certainly never called offense at the NFL level, and it's likely that he hasn't ever had the headset to call an offense. That's certainly a concern, a question that you would have about Nick Caley is, hey, what type of growing pains are you going to have to deal with because this guy's calling offense for the first time? Well, Bobby Slowick called offense for the first time, and there weren't as many growing pains in 2023 as there were growing pains in 2024, not being able to adjust, evolve, develop what he did in 2023 the previous year. It was stale, unimaginative, and predictable in 2024. That's a concern with first-time play callers. A little bit of beginner's luck. Can they replicate that in year two? Bobby Slowick, it was a no. With Nick Caley, you hope that being under McVay, watching him operate, being under McDaniels, watching him operate. And look, McDaniels, disaster as a head coach. Very good offensive coordinator. Had a lot of success as offensive coordinator and calling plays. Brady liked him a lot. And hopefully sitting under the learning tree there, watching McDaniels call plays, understanding how he operated, and then 2 years with Sean McVay gives him a nice, solid base. So that's one of my concerns about Nick Caley is first-time play caller. Certainly a concern with a bunch of other candidates that the Texans would talk to, have talked to. So that's something that can't get fixed in the next few weeks. Another concern with Caley is it's not just the offensive coordinator spot that needs to get adjusted. The offensive coaching staff needs to get revolutionized, probably feels like a big word, but get adjusted. Well, Nick Caley, having just coached in New England and with the Rams in his time in the NFL, his Rolodex may not be a super large Rolodex. The Texans need a new offensive line coach. They probably need an assistant offensive line coach. They could probably use a different tight ends coach, maybe some other changes on the coaching staff. Caley's probably got a limited Rolodex compared to some of the other candidates that the Texans have talked to or we would like for them to talk to. That's an element where D'Amico Ryans can help him out. Nick Caserio can help him out. But if someone, say, like Chip Kelly, if Chip Kelly had this offensive coordinator job, Chip Kelly's coached for many, many years, incredible Rolodex that he possesses, I'm sure, to go out there and find some of these coaches. Now, a positive from Caley's Rolodex is the Texans need an offensive line coach. I really like the assistant offensive line coach in LA, Zach Cromer. Zach Cromer's been coaching for about a decade. He's been there for a long time, so he's familiar with how McVay has operated things. That's another McVay mind to bring into the building. And Cromer's dad, Aaron Cromer, is one of the best offensive line coaches in football. And oh, by the way, Aaron Cromer used to be the offensive line coach for the LA Rams, and he was the offensive line coach when they won the Super Bowl. So a little bit of family lineage for Zach Cromer, and he's an assistant offensive line coach. So if Caley got along with him, wanted to make him the O-line coach, boom, you bring him over from LA, and all of a sudden you got a couple of McVay minds in the building, guys who've been around, and heck, Cromer's been around longer than Caley has around with McVay. So that's a positive to the Rolodex. So the negatives would be how many coaches can he help you hire so that they fit in with his workflow, and how's he going to operate from a first-time play caller standpoint. The positives, the Sean McVay effect and the success that McVay disciples have had across the league and even in college football, and the varied coaching history that he possesses, having been a tight ends coach. And I say varied coaching history in that tight ends coaches, they got to coach blocking, they got to coach receiving, they got to coach run blocking, pass blocking, all the various things. That's the positives. That's the negatives. What say you about Nick Caley? Let's get to some of the questions, comments, joys, and concerns about Nick Caley. Sean G asks, honest question, do you want Caley because you feel he would be a good offensive coordinator, although unproven, or is it because you are hopeful he will bring the O-line coach you have mentioned previously? I mean, part of the package of Caley is potentially bringing a good offensive line coach with him. But if he came over here and they didn't hire Zach Cromer to leave LA and come to Houston, it's not like I'm going to sit here and say, oh no, the candidacy for Nick Caley is ruined. I mean, it's a bonus, it's a positive, but his candidacy, none of these guys' candidacy should be built on the other coaches associated with them. It should be built on what can this guy do with the opportunity? What can this guy do when they slap the headset on him? He's talking to CJ Stroud, and he has to be the guy to put the play in to get the Texans rolling and moving. And that's a simplistic approach to what this offensive coordinator job is going to bring to the table, because there's going to have to be a lot of adjusting, rebuilding, reshaping, retooling for the Texans offense, whoever gets the job. So his candidacy and how much I like him is not solely based on the fact that he's bringing along an offensive line coach that I believe is going to be pretty good at being an offensive line coach. A couple of other questions. That step back, though, says, I'm scared of Chip Kelly. Like you're scared, like he's a frightening individual, or you're scared the Texans would hire him? I'm not afraid of Chip Kelly. I don't believe Chip Kelly's leaving the college level. It's a really cushy job at Ohio State. It's a job that's stacked with advantages that no NFL team really presents on a year-in, year-out basis. And he makes a lot of money already at Ohio State. Do I want to go make an extra $1 million and work twice as hard, or do I want to kind of get a little pay bump, maybe make an extra $500,000 and keep my same workload and start the year with one of the 10 best rosters in all of football? Yeah, I lean towards the college element. Now, if he wants to get back in the pros, he's certainly got the opportunity with the Texans if he's interested and they're interested, and then the Buccaneers if they're interested and he's interested, which both teams should be interested in him. And if you are worried about experience, you're worried about play calling, Chip Kelly's probably called more plays than Nick Caley has even watched plays. Like, Nick Caley's total plays watched probably is less than Chip Kelly's called plays. So if you want experience, then Chip Kelly's your guy. You go pay for him, you go get him, you can convince him to leave college. But I don't believe Kelly's leaving. Now, he could still very much be in the process. The Texans have wasted no time in going through the process. They fired Bobby Slowick on Friday after DeMeco Ryans said he would take the week. Then they took the weekend to put together their hit list. 2 interviews yesterday, Gerard Johnson, the quarterback's coach, and then the Syracuse offensive coordinator, Jeff Nixon. Then today, talked to Thad Lewis, got an interview scheduled Thursday with Nick Caley. Who knows? They'll probably talk to somebody else tomorrow. It's worth noting a large portion of the Texans contingency, DeMeco Ryans, general manager Nick Caserio, and a handful of other front office members are in Mobile, Alabama, just like I am here for the Senior Bowl. So they're together. They probably chit-chatted and talked and had a conversation about when and how, and talking to these various candidates, in addition to watching a bunch of the football action here at the Senior Bowl practices. So it is a faster moving process once they got going. Like, they took a while to fire their guy, and then it took them 2 days to kind of put together their shot sheet, and now they're taking their shots. 2 yesterday, 1 today. I would guess they'll probably talk to somebody Wednesday. So maybe somebody else that's on one of the lists, but at the very least, they've got Caley scheduled for Thursday. Ryan Day for OC, laughing face, just joking. Well, I mean, look, if Day had been fired, I would have been touting Ryan Day as the guy, but he also probably would have had 5 college programs lining up to hire him as well. I did see somebody, let me see if I can go find it here. Wasn't Tim Kelly a tight ends coach? Yes, Tim Kelly was a tight ends coach. Tim Kelly also only ever coached O'Brien before he took over as an offensive coordinator and a play caller from his time at, or I say only ever really coached offense under Bill O'Brien, because he was a grad assistant, even coached a little defense when he was in college. He was with O'Brien at Penn State, and then he was on the offensive side of the ball starting in 2014. The teacher a lot of times dictates how good of a student you can be. And if Bill O'Brien is your teacher, we saw the results. If Sean McVay is your teacher, Kevin O'Connell, double-digit wins, nearly the number 1 seed in the NFC this year. Zach Taylor been to a Super Bowl. Liam Cohen, fantastic at college, fantastic in 1 year with the Buccaneers. You start to see how the teacher and how good the teacher is kind of makes you a better student. And that's what I would say to the Tim Kelly situation is, Tim Kelly, he coached tight ends. Yeah, a lot of good it did the Texans when he ended up being an offensive coordinator. He wasn't very good at it. Well, Bill O'Brien wasn't very good at calling offense. So as the teacher to Tim Kelly, I mean, how could Tim Kelly have ended up being successful? If Tim Kelly had coached tight ends and been the pass game coordinator under Sean McVay, I would think differently about him. He didn't. He did it under Bill O'Brien. Stefon Harris says, wouldn't hate it if he could focus on just Stroud and the offense, and as a failed head coach, there'd be little danger of poaching from another team. That's a benefit to Chip Kelly, certainly, is that if Chip Kelly is successful in his first year as the offensive coordinator, then he probably is not leaving for another offensive coordinator job another head coaching job. I don't imagine that another team is tripping over themselves to hand Chip Kelly the opportunity to be the guy for their organization again. So Chip Kelly, oldest, most experienced potential candidate for the Texans, is also the candidate most likely to stick around. I would also tell you, if your coordinator is good enough to be a head coach next year, you're going to have a pretty good year. You realize how good Nick Caley would have to be as the Texans offensive coordinator in 2025 to be a head coach in 2026, right? He'd have to be excellent. Liam Cohen got the nod from Tampa because the Buccaneers were awesome on offense this year, with and without Chris Godwin, with and without Mike Evans, 2 running backs, pretty solid offensive line group to work with. And then Baker Mayfield playing some of the best football of his career. This is Baker Mayfield that bounced around on a couple of different teams in one season a couple of years ago. And now he's entrenched, a $40 million quarterback with the Buccaneers, and Liam Cohen and Dave Canales the year before were one-and-done offensive coordinators for him. Now, has that been a challenge for the Buccaneers? Sure. But if you're good enough to hire one excellent guy and people see that spot that you have as an offensive coordinator makes kings and gives guys opportunities to go be head coach, you'll have people tripping over themselves to come in and be your offensive coordinator. So I'm not worried about a guy that, is good enough to be here and then leaves after one season. Like, I'm not worried about, that's not a big concern of mine. That's where you want to be. That means your offense is kicking people's teeth in. So Sumo LR asks a question. Are these Chip-related coaches people who Chip will be hiring onto his staff, or is he giving Houston suggestions for people he would hire for the OC spot? So what Sumo is talking about is Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback coach Thad Lewis getting an interview with the Texans. That was mentioned today. Ian Rappaport was the first to report that today. Thad Lewis, quarterback coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, got an offensive coordinator interview from the Texans today. They wrapped that up today. Lewis has coached quarterbacks for 2 seasons for Tampa. Prior to that, he was the assistant wide receivers coach, and prior to that, he was an intern for the Buccaneers. He got his coaching start in college at UCLA when Chip Kelly was the head coach at UCLA. He also played quarterback for Chip Kelly in San Francisco when Kelly was the head coach of the 49ers for a season. So could you be realistically interviewing one of Chip Kelly's assistant coaches for your offensive coordinator spot just to find out more about that guy, find out more about Chip Kelly? And then if Thad Lewis isn't retained from Tampa or retained by Tampa, then he becomes a member of Chip Kelly's coaching staff. You hired Chip Kelly? Yes, absolutely something that could be going on. Absolutely. Thad Lewis has, to me, the weakest resume of any of the people that we've talked about as serious candidates or has been interviewed. Gerard Johnson, to me, would be a better coach or would be a better offensive coordinator than Thad Lewis. It's a really light resume from Thad Lewis. He's really only been a position coach for 2 seasons. Both those at quarterback, and both of those with offensive-minded head coaches. And yes, I know I'm giving McVay credit for coaching up Nick Caley and then sort of, kind of using that as a knock against Thad Lewis. Well, Caley's got a longer coaching resume, so there's more of, hey, I know what to do. Whereas a shorter coaching resume, you may need to lean on veteran coaches more, especially the head coach if they're an offensive-minded guy. Galen asks about Senior Bowl stuff. We'll get to Senior Bowl here in just a minute. But Jalen will put that one in the hopper and get to that here. A couple more questions about the offensive coordinator thing. Then we'll talk some Senior Bowl. I got a Senior Bowl 7-pack for you. Okay, you've heard about 6-packs. 6-packs are tasty. 7-packs, that's where you can really get things going. Brady hated Billy O when he was the OC in New England. I don't know if that was – hated's probably not the way I would say it, but Brady liked to be coached hard, and I believe Bill O'Brien indeed did that. TK says Nick Caley has a good relationship with Nick Caserio during their work together with the New England Patriots. Yeah, look, the New England Patriots connection is a positive for Nick Caley in this situation, trying to get into the mix, trying to get the job. And look, just because they interview him doesn't mean they're going to like him. I mean, this is going to be his second shot at the job, and he didn't win it last time. Felt like DeMeco Ryans kind of had his heart set on Bobby Slowick, but they gave Caley the opportunity. It was almost kind of, let's see what he can do if we ever need to talk to him again. And here we are, lo and behold, 2 years later, and they had to talk to him again, and he maybe is going to end up being the offensive coordinator. Stefon Harris says, I was pretty anti-Chip, but I have to believe DeMeco hires him, then it's because of their already established relationship with the Eagles. It's also cool as hell Chip used to call DeMeco Mufasa. Yeah, that's a fun little element of the relationship. DeMeco Ryans played under Chip Kelly, which, by the way, Ryan Day coached under Chip Kelly, and now he's Chip Kelly's boss. So Chip Kelly would go from protege to protege if he made that move from college as the Ohio State offensive coordinator to the Texans offensive coordinator spot. He called DeMeco Ryans Mufasa, the Lion King. He kind of ran things for the defense before he finished it up there in Philadelphia. Nick Rodriguez, Houston Texans, into the Nick verse. Yeah, Nick Caley, Nick Caserio, lot of. I can handle Nick Caley and Nick Caserio better than I can handle Jeff Nixon, Joe Mixon, which was the conversation we had yesterday. Was too close on the Ixons, and too close on the first names. Jeff Nixon, Joe Mixon, Nick Caley, Nick Caserio. Easier on the two Nick Caserio, Nick Caley. Easier on that than Mixon, Nixon, Jeff. I promise you I would call him Jeff Mixon and Joe Nixon. Like, I promise you if that was the case. If you're unfamiliar, Jeff Nixon is the Syracuse offensive coordinator. He interviewed for the Texans offensive coordinator position. Syracuse number 1 passing offense this year in college football, number 21 scoring offense in college football this past year. He previously coordinated Baylor's offense and short stretch as the Carolina Panthers interim offensive coordinator. And Original J says, hey, I wouldn't mind Nixon either. Nixon to me is not a top choice, but Nixon's the type of guy that you interview this year. And if Nick Caley's awesome and he leaves, then you go get Nixon because you liked him the previous year when you interviewed with him. That's kind of what I feel like the Jeff Nixon interview was like. Andrew Solis says the Shanahan offense is exposed and washed. A good thing that you're not hiring a Shanahan disciple. Look, Sean McVay has done a good job putting his own twist and turns and elements in, and the McVay offense and the McVay tree is far more successful now than the Shanahan tree is right now. A few years ago, the Shanahan tree was the one you wanted to pick off of. Now, not so much. You go with the McVay tree. Did you see Hopkins diss the Texans? Yeah, the thing I think about DeAndre Hopkins that annoys me is he doesn't realize that the fans like him still and that the fans didn't want him traded. And just because the organization messed up, he doesn't realize that when he talks bad about the organization, it hurts his relationship with the fans. So Christopher says, need tight ends that can block and catch, not just catch. Another big running back to pair with Mixon. Yeah, those would all be preferable things. Let me send a text message real quick. In a few. Okay. All right. All right, a couple more people asking about the Senior Bowl. Genesis says, any O-lineman that you fancy the Senior Bowl for a possible second or third round pick? And Jalen Johnson, 0339, early asked, Cody, is there a player caught your eye in the Senior Bowl today? So I present to you what I'm going to call the Senior Bowl 7. So 7 observations about the Senior Bowl practice here today. The full detailed breakdown of the Senior Bowl is on Houston Football. The link should be in the description of this, www.houfootball.com. The total write-up was, I think close to 1,000 words on all the stuff I saw today. I'm not going to go line by line through the notebook here for this one, but we'll get to some of the Senior Bowl observations and then the big ones from the Senior Bowl 7 here in just a moment after we go to Kingdom Bear's Super Chat, which Super Chat's cut to the front of the line. Kingdom Bear says, I think I've watched all your podcasts about the Texans' future OC, and I think Caley is the best candidate, realistically speaking. Saludos. Thank you, Kingdom Bear. I mean, Caley has been the guy for me since I knew Slowick was getting fired. To me, it was Nick Caley, Dave Ragone, the quarterback's coach in LA. If you could get Chip Kelly, I like Chip Kelly more than Ragone. I didn't believe Chip Kelly was leaving. So Caley's been my guy from the beginning. And Caley's the guy that they're going to talk to on Thursdays. Kingdom Bear, thank you for the super chat. Okay, let me set the scene here for you on the Senior Bowl. I think the Reese's Senior Bowl is such a fun event. They've got the slogan that the draft starts in Mobile. And I think that's such a great slogan. And here, I want to show you the website here, which, of course, you'll watch the game this weekend. Watch it on NFL Network. The draft starts in Mobile, which I feel like is such a great slogan. It's an all-star game. They have about 120-plus players. They put them onto two teams, the national team and the American team. And then they have good old-fashioned – I mean, it's basically a training camp practice. If you guys have ever seen the training camp updates that I do, it's kind of what I do for the Senior Bowl. Go through, you watch, take notes. I take notes of everybody by number, and then I go back and reference it with the rosters to find out who is who and what and so on. And as I kind of pour through the roster, I learn and understand a little bit more about each of these players. And I got a couple of guys coming in that I want to look at, but they practice. There's a morning practice and afternoon practice, one for each team. And they do little position drills. They do some special team stuff. Then they do one-on-ones. Then they do some 7-on-7 stuff. And then they do some straight up team stuff. And it's the last little vestige of real football that a lot of these guys do, because then you go into train for the combine mode, and that's not real football. You don't run 40 yards in a straight line to operate your play in the NFL. You do everything in pads, which you do it in practice here at the Senior Bowl. So I love the Senior Bowl. I love that it is a big-time tentpole event in the entire draft process, and teams to come here and talk to these kids. So, Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans, James Lipford, who's one of the top executives and one of the top scouting guys with the front office, and two other members of the scouting front office were all here for the Texans. So at least 5 guys here for the Texans to observe Senior Bowl. And I loved watching D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio interact and where they posted up at the Senior Bowl. Some coaches watch it from the box upstairs. Some coaches watch it from the stands. Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans, right there on the field, and they picked, to me, the best spot on the field, where Caserio and D'Amico Ryans were standing. They're standing next to each other. And by the way, Nick Caserio is a mile a minute with the hands. Man, he is a hand-talking, you know what. I mean, pointing and this and this and feels like the hands never stayed in the vest pockets very long. So Caserio and D'Amico Ryans standing next to each other on the field. I mean, like right there on the field as they're doing the drills. To their left, offensive line versus defensive line, one-on-ones and team stuff. Right in front of them, running backs versus linebackers and safeties in pass catching. And then to their right was one-on-ones for safeties and cornerbacks and tight ends and receivers. And they were just boop, 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 boop. And I tried to watch their eyes and try to take an educated guess based on how they watched and who they watched. And somebody that maybe there was no Caserio didn't do. I mean, I'd be a terrible general manager if in an alternate universe, Nick Caserio and I switched roles. I'd have been the guy. I'd have been like, D'Amico, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Caserio, very measured, never gets high or low on a guy based off of one rep. Had his little laminated roster sheet, and he's flipping that thing over, looking at it. And it felt to me like there wasn't a lot of just their eyes didn't give anything away, except I have a strong feeling that they really paid extra attention to one particular running back. Somebody already guessed the name here in the chat. But that's Kansas running back Devin Neal. So Touch and Trent put the name in there. Devin Neal. Kansas running back Devin Neal. Devin Neal absolutely feels like the type of running back that the Texans would love to have. He is a former highly touted recruit. He played all 4 years for Kansas. He scored 53 touchdowns in his 4 seasons. He had over 4,000 rushing yards total in his 4 seasons for Kansas. He had multiple offers to leave the Jayhawks for millions of dollars to go somewhere else. He's like, nah, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. I'm going to see this through. I was here when it was bad. I'm going to be here when it's good. So Devin Neal, to me, felt like a guy that they spent, just a little extra eye time on. And I'll try to catch up with Devin Neal while we're here in Mobile and ask him, hey, did you talk to the Texans? See what he has to say. So we'll talk to those guys tomorrow. We get to talk to him after practice. It's a little chaos after practice, though. But I loved the setup that Nick Caserio had, and I loved the setup that he and D'Amico Ryans put on the field. Right there on the field, perfect view for everything, and was really good. Really good watching those. And, I spent a good amount of time paying attention to what they were paying attention to, kind of watching their eyes and seeing what they were looking at. Okay, without further ado, the Senior Bowl 7 observations. Let's start with Jack Bech. Bech is one of my favorite players so far. He was one of my favorite players coming in. He is the wide receiver from TCU. Now, his teammate, Savion Williams, was supposed to be here as well. Williams was a more exciting potential prospect than Bech because Williams is built like Calvin Johnson from a physical profile standpoint, super fast, can do a lot of different things. But Bech is the TCU wide receiver that actually made it to Mobile for this game and for the practices. And I felt like everything Bech did looked easy. He was returning punts, and I thought that he looked like the smoothest punt returner and fielder of the punts. He won his routes with physicality. He won his routes with speed. He won his routes with good route running. Now, he didn't win every route. Nobody wins every route, but he didn't win every route, but he won a variety of different ways. And when the plays in 11-on-11 didn't go his way, he was blocking his ass off. So Bech, to me, came in. He was one of my favorites. He's done nothing to change that. He was one of my favorites today. And he's a guy that I'm watching, and he absolutely fits what the Texans could do if they draft 2 wide receivers. Like, I wouldn't want Jack Bech to be my top wide receiver. I wouldn't want him to be the only wide receiver that I drafted. But if I drafted 2 wide receivers and one of them was Jack Bech, I think I'm well on my way to putting together a really good wide receiver room. It's worth noting Bech is wearing number 7. That's not what he wore at TCU. So if you go watch his highlights and then you see him in the Senior Bowl, he's changed numbers. 7 was his brother's number, Tiger Bech. Tiger Bech was unfortunately a victim of the terrorist attack on New Year's Eve in New Orleans. So Jack Bech's brother lost his life earlier this year, and he changed his number to his brother's number at Princeton. And at the Senior Bowl, all the helmets have a Tiger Bech 7 Princeton sticker on them, which is a very, very cool gesture by the Senior Bowl to put that on all the helmets, by Bech's new teammates here to help honor his brother. And so I liked him independent of the story. I also like him having to deal with the tragedy and also the extra oomph that it will be to carry on his brother's football playing legacy. So Senior Bowl observation number 1 in the Senior Bowl 7-pack is Jack Bech. Elijah Arroyo. Now, if you haven't heard of Elijah Arroyo, you didn't watch enough Miami Hurricanes games this year. Arroyo was probably the standout on offense today. He was awesome. The tight end from Miami was smooth. Man, he was smooth. He's fast, excellent receiving tight end. He beat a guy today. He beat a guy, and it was just, it was a little bit of a foot chop. And he kind of went to go put a move on the guy, and he kind of just let the guy fly past him. And then he turned on the accelerator. He was past the guy. Boop, touchdown. So he is big time impressive. Elijah Arroyo, the Miami tight end. Excited to see what he does the next couple of days. Excited to see some of these DBs, linebackers, safeties kind of step up to the challenge after he had a really good first day. After you have a first day, you got a target on your back. All the defenders want to come and have a good day against you because you had the good day the first day, and they want to come have a good day. So with the target on his back for day 2, let's see what Elijah Arroyo can do for an encore after the impressive and probably one of the most impressive offensive performances, as well as the most impressive tight end performance. So Elijah Arroyo, Senior Bowl 7 observation number 2. Senior Bowl 7 observation number 3 is the word plotting. Plotting is like when you watch a kid who grew too fast, like 7th to 8th grade, he grew too fast and he didn't quite know how to run yet. And so he kind of heavy-footed, and it's like very slow, and you can tell like there's a little bit more there, but there's just not a lot of juice to it. That was basically the rest of the tight ends. Now, not every single tight end, but that was basically the rest of them. Moliki Matavio from UCLA, I got the heads up. Hey, watch this guy. I think there's something there. He's enormous. He's got to be close to 6'8", and got to be close to 300 pounds. And he should be a tackle. He should not be a tight end. It feels like he was plotting, man. That was the optimal word for him, was plotting. I was excited to see what Jake Brittingstool from Clemson brings to the table. Plotter. Thomas Findone from Nebraska. Plotter. Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech. Plotter. Gavin Bartholomew from Pittsburgh. Plotter. There were only 2 guys outside of Arroyo that weren't plotters. That was Harold Fannin Jr. If you've watched the channel, you watched SNL with Landry Locker and myself, you know a little bit about Harold Fannin Jr. We've mentioned his name before. Tight end from Bowling Green. Incredible receiver at the tight end position. As I was watching today, I didn't have a roster initially. My first few minutes, I was just kind of writing things down. I was just going by numbers. And I was like, I looked over at a friend's roster and I said, hey, who's 44? What's his deal? I mean, that fullback's moving around real good. No, that fullback is not a fullback. That fullback is a tight end, but he didn't look like a tight end. Those other guys looked like giants compared to him. And I don't know if Harold Fannin Jr. can do some of the tight end stuff that you need from the position, but I know he can run out there and catch the ball. He had a great catch today where the quarterbacks put it out just a little bit too far in front of him, and he had the full extension, grab, ripped it down, stayed in stride, and kept moving. And that was really impressive. So Harold Fannin, got to keep an eye on him. Big-time tight end guy, but I don't know if he can handle some of the tight end duties. The other tight end that kind of caught my eye, LSU fans, you know him, Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is one of the tight ends that caught my eye. Had a beautiful out route today. Mason Taylor's dad is Hall of Fame defensive end Jason Taylor. So the bloodline's there. His uncle is Zach Thomas, Hall of Fame linebacker. So Mason Taylor, smooth, man. And then I talked to him after, and he said he expects to talk to the Texans this week. And I talked to Mason Taylor after, and I said, hey, is there a part of your game that's underrated? Is there an element that maybe people don't give you enough credit for? And he said handling a lot on my plate. And then he went on to explain it, and he said, as a tight end, I got to run block, I got to pass block, I got to inline block, I got to block outside, I got to be good at receiving, I got to sell it when I'm not a receiver, I got to sell it when I'm not actually a blocker. I've got to be comfortable making an impact when I don't get the football. And me making an impact is not a 100-yard game a lot of times. And I just love that answer. And I know it's probably a, put together answer a little bit. You got to imagine Pops helped him out a little bit to get ready for this thing. But I really like that answer from Mason Taylor. A lot of guys just say, oh, I'm faster than you think I am. Oh, I'm stronger than you think I am. But he was like, no, actually being able to handle everything that a tight end does, I'm better at it than people give me credit for. And I was like, okay. Sounds good. Trey of Texas about the UCLA tight end. That's almost bigger than Antonio Gates. Yeah, Antonio was pretty big there at the end there. So, Senior Bowl 7 observation number 3, plotting. A lot of those tight ends plotting. And not plotting to take over the world, plotting like an old horse around the field. Senior Bowl observation number 4. It's going to be centered around 3 players. It's called Tiny But. So, Xavier Restrepo, another Miami player. Xavier Restrepo, coming into the Senior Bowl, I was hoping was going to be this year's Ladd McConkey. Smaller, lighter-skinned, slot-centric receiver that just goes out there and wins, gets open, gets the ball. And then I showed up here to Mobile, Alabama, and I didn't quite catch Restrepo out of the crowd just yet, but I saw Tez Johnson. Now, Tez Johnson is in the Tank Dell mode. Tez Johnson, much shorter player, super fast player. Okay, Tez Johnson, super fast. And I watched Tez Johnson run around, and I was like, yikes, Tez Johnson is tiny, man. I was like, how is he going to survive in the NFL? What's going on there? Like, what how's Tez Johnson going to work? And then Tez Johnson got back in the wide receiver line. I was like, oh, there's Restrepo. And then Tez Johnson stood next to Restrepo. And I was like, hold on now. Tez Johnson's taller than Xavier Restrepo. And I was like, uh-oh. What's going on there, Restrepo? So maybe Restrepo's not going to quite be this year's Ladd McConkey, but man, again, I use the word smooth. But I think probably the better way to say it with Restrepo, some of his stuff looks effortless. It doesn't look like he's trying really hard to go out there and win on a route. It doesn't look like he's trying really hard to go out there and use whatever tool he needs to get open. Now, again, didn't win every route, and some of the straight line speed stuff kind of caught up to him. But Restrepo, I would say effortless. Tez Johnson, I mean, speed merchant, changing speeds, use the straight line speed when he needed to. And then the final tiny but is hold on, I have it here in my notes. Is I'm lying to you here. He's a linebacker out of Notre Dame. Number 20 linebacker from Notre Dame, Jack Kaiser. So I watch a Kaiser. I'm like, well, that's one hell of a safety, man. That's a big safety. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. And I noticed a little extra, maybe just a little extra kind of like, oh, this guy's going up for the drill now from Nick Caserio on Jack Kaiser, the Notre Dame linebacker. But here's the thing. I didn't know he was a linebacker at the time. I thought he was a safety. He's like, that's a big safety. And then when he got moving, I was like, actually, that's just a small linebacker. But you know what Kaiser is? Kaiser's a monster. He went out there. He's solo tackle leader in college football this past season. Played a lot of football. And here's what I like about Kaiser. A lot of the Ohio State guys, not here. Played too much football. Went out there and played too much football. After playing 16 games for Notre Dame in his 6th season of college football, Jack Kaiser went out here to the Senior Bowl and want to go out there and compete. And I feel like Caserio looked a little extra his way, and I'm keeping an eye on Kaiser. He might he might just be like that special teams demon. I don't know where he's supposed to go. I'll have a better understanding of all this as people put out big boards and stuff like that. But I wouldn't put it past Kaiser being on the Texans radar here. A couple of comments. Let's get to. Ollie Gordon would be so dirty. You know, not a great running back day. Didn't get a chance to really show off a lot of what they didn't get a chance to show off what they're capable of. I'm getting a yes, lighter skin. Lighter skin. Yeah. Yeah. Pigment challenged. Okay. Lad means light skinned in Scottish. Did not know that. I'm going to take your word for it. I'm not going to research that. The last Kaiser from Notre Dame wasn't too great. Well, yeah, he probably shouldn't have been drafted where he was either. So, it's Jack Kaiser. That was tiny but mighty. So that's a Senior Bowl 7-pack observation number 4. Senior Bowl 7-pack observation number 5. The D-line won day 1. I mean, the poor national squad. I feel like every one of those offensive linemen got worked at some point. I felt bad for them. And there were a couple of those guys like Wyatt Milam from West Virginia. I was excited to watch him. Smoked. Jonah Monahan from USC, he got smoked. Irseri from Minnesota, I think is how you say his name, crushed a couple times. I mean, D lineman after D lineman after D lineman in this national squad just had a huge day. Jamree Caldwell from Oregon, huge, large individual. He was making guys' lives a living hell. Black from Iowa, defensive tackle. He was in on a bunch of stuff. Where's some of these other guys here in my notes? Oh, this oh God, I'm going to screw this up. Boston College edge rusher Donovan Ezerakua. It's either Raku or Rakua. Ezeraku or Ezerakua. Either way, Donovan from Boston College. He was wreaking havoc on people. But the guy that jumped off the page to me in the first set of defensive linemen, Darius Alexander from Toledo. He looks like he slimmed up a little bit from the reported weight, changed the body a little bit. He didn't really look like a defensive tackle to me. He actually reminded me a little bit of Darius Robinson from Missouri last year, although Robinson was maybe, I need to talk with some other draft people, see if I'm on the right track with that. But, yeah, from Toledo. And you're thinking to yourself, Toledo? Like, yeah, Toledo. Darius Alexander. So that's a name I'll be keeping the eye on the next couple of days. D-line in the second group. I mean, I feel like every one of the Ole Miss guys had a big day in the second group. Deion Walker from Kentucky, enormous individual, large. At one point, he said to an offensive lineman, he said, "You got to let go of me at some time. You got to let go of me at some time." And I was like, that's a great line. But the "Oh my God, you shouldn't be able to do that" award goes to Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. Defensive tackle, just speed, power, getting past. I mean, Walter Nolan was nasty. Nasty. Azaraku, is that that's how you say his name? Okay, I will learn it before tomorrow. Let's see. Senior Bowl 7-pack. Running backs yet to flash. So running backs yet to flash a little bit. This is actually the time where I can go back to my linebacker friend, Jack Kaiser. So Kaiser had 3 specific running back reps in coverage that I think are interesting. And it's really kind of only the 3 reps where I feel like running backs kind of, jumped off the page to me here. Kaiser was on R.J. Harvey. And if you don't know who R.J. Harvey is, R.J. Harvey, back-to-back years, top 8 in scrimmage yards in college football. UCF running back. He is a do-it-all, smaller back, but he was a nightmare for opposing defenses. He was awesome this year. He was nipping it before Genty went nuts there towards the back end. He was nipping at Genty's heels for scrimmage yards at one point this season. But R.J. Harvey gets out of there, hits a little route on Kaiser, and Kaiser's right there, bats the ball away. And you're like, okay, pretty good job there, Kaiser. So then you go back, and it's a couple snaps later, and Jarquez Hunter steps up, running back from Auburn. And Jarquez Hunter, I don't know what all these offensive players did to his family, but he treated every one of these guys like they had insulted his mother. There was one play where he went to run a route, and he just ran into the guy and kind of thumped him and then chopped his feet and turned right, and the ball was there. But Kaiser was all over him. I think almost, I would say, as close to perfectly defended as you can get without him making the play. And Jarquez Hunter, boop, comes up with it, kind of shakes Kaiser off, takes off down the field. And then later, R.J. Harvey got a little revenge on Mr. Kaiser. Jack Kaiser could not stick with R.J. Harvey the second time around. But again, not really a lot of moments for the running backs to flash. And there's a lot of running backs I like here. Brashard Smith, Devin Neal, R.J. Harvey. I mentioned Jarquez Hunter. There's a guy I'm pretty interested in seeing more of, Ollie Gordon II. Martinez from Miami, Donovan Edwards from Michigan. Jaquavius Marks goes by Woody, I believe. Woody Marks, really good pass catcher, it seems, at the running back spot. Again, I think some other people maybe spent a little bit more time on the running backs than I did today, but nothing, especially in the teams stuff, nothing really flashed today. Oh, I got to go back to one defensive lineman. Aeneas Peebles absolutely destroyed the first 2 plays of teams in the first practice. And last one on the Senior Bowl observations, the Senior Bowl 7-pack here for you. The dirty V word. Bill O'Brien made versatility a nerdy word around NRG Stadium. Versatility is a bad thing when Bill O'Brien talks about it. But a lot of these offensive linemen are going to try to be versatile, including a lot of tackles trying to snap the ball and play guard. For instance, Wyatt Milam from West Virginia. I saw him snapping before practice got started. He played inside. It didn't go great for him inside, but he'll play a little tackle out here as well. Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech. Again, basically a career tackle. Saw him snapping. He'll play a little bit inside. The guy that's Mr. Versatility on the inside is Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. He was a tackle at North Dakota State. He will not be a tackle at the NFL level because Gray Zabel is going to be a guard for somebody. And Gray Zabel is going to be maybe able to contribute right away from day one based on his day. He had probably the best day of any of the offensive linemen that I can recall and that I watched. Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. It's unfortunate he's basically disqualified because he didn't go to a Power 5 school because Caserio basically doesn't draft Power 5 guys. I'd make an exception for Gray Zabel. He looked very, very ready for the step up in competition. Very ready. So, interested to see a little bit more from him. Jason says 1 for 10 on Caserio hiring the right IC, low for me. Thanks for the super chat, Jason. Nick Caserio does not make the hire. D'Amico Ryans makes the hire. So what's my confidence level on D'Amico Ryans? No lower than a 7. Probably not higher than like a 8 point something. But no lower than a 7. I believe in D'Amico Ryans. I believe that he's going to go through this process, find exactly what he wants out of the offensive coordinator. And again, Nick Caserio can help. Nick Caserio can make recommendations. Nick Caserio doesn't make this hire. This is D'Amico Ryans' hire. Jason, appreciate the super chat. Sorry I didn't see that earlier. Okay. couple more thoughts and we'll wrap it up here and get you ready for Senior Bowl Day 2. Texas Tangent says, I hope we can find a tackle who can start at guard this year. Apparently, it's not a great guard year from what the experts are saying. Although, when you see the North Dakota guy do what he does, maybe it is a little bit better guard season than you think. But a lot of tackles going to try to play guard this year, and I don't know that I love that. But I'm all for putting a big group out there, and it feels like tackles turning into guards usually turn into really big guards. So, Mao B says, did you see the small O lineman? He's a guard. Yes, I did. His name is Willie Lampkin. He plays at North Carolina, and he is a pistol, man. He got into it with a couple people in practice. Willie Lampkin is not a big fella, but he played at North Carolina. He's out here giving it a go, and, he's smaller, but he small in stature, not small in heart. Cases KK, Nick Emanawari. Nick Emanawari. Is that a guy you want me to look at, or is that a guy that's out here? Because I'll put him on my list. I don't see him off the first look, but I'll do a little research on that for you. Nick Emanawari. He's a safety. All right, hold on now. Let me see if his number pops. So I don't know the guy's names yet. I mean, I know their names when I'm looking at them, but I don't know their numbers. So, did I see the number flash today? I don't see him out here. Did he get a Senior Bowl invite? All right, we'll do some Emanawari looking. Maybe it's not a Senior Bowl guy. Maybe it's just a guy you want me to think about. Any safeties that stood out? No. Not in the first day. You think we need a tight end in round 2 or round 3? I mean, it depends on who's there. Gunnar Helm did not make it to the Senior Bowl. Played too much for Texas this year, so didn't make it to the Senior Bowl. Makuba was supposed to be here, not playing. All right, so I got a couple names here that I'll add to the list. Any standout corners? Nobody that jumped off the page to me. I'm trying to see here. Maxwell Harrison had a really nice play at one point from Kentucky. Kentucky's had a good player here, it feels like, for a few years now. He had a nice play. I really want to watch this Upton Stout kid. I've heard his name a few different times. I want to watch this Upton Stout kid. I'll put him on the list for tomorrow as well. So, okay. That will do it. The dirty V word, versatility. That will do it for the live stream tonight. LaQuint Allen, Syracuse running back, 126th rushing offense in football this past year, Syracuse. But LaQuint Allen, he had a really nice juke today that I liked. So, okay. More Senior Bowl stuff tomorrow. Everything will be later tomorrow because when we're done with practice tomorrow, get cleaned up, and then it's media night. So everything's going to be much later tomorrow. So SNL will be later tomorrow. This will be later tomorrow. The write-up will be later, but it'll have a lot of good stuff. It'll have hopefully some interviews, some one-on-ones, or some, small groups with some of these guys. And hey, have the Texans talk to you? Did you talk to the Texans while you're here? And hopefully we'll get some good names, some interesting and fun names on that. So be on the on X tomorrow for the live stuff during it. And, of course, Houston football for the super detailed stuff, covering some of the things that maybe I didn't hit here. And appreciate everybody for watching this. Started with Nick Caley, ended with the Senior Bowl. Lots of fun stuff. I love this stuff, and I'm having a blast. I love that you guys love it. And, appreciate y'all watching. So Pandaline says, going to watch some Jack Besh highlights after I watch. Who else do I need to watch? Watch Jack Besh. Watch Elijah Arroyo. And watch Devin Neal. Jack Besh, Elijah Arroyo, and Devin Neal. Jack Besh, TCU wide receiver, Elijah Arroyo, Miami tight end, Devin Neal, Kansas running back. So check out some highlight videos of those for you. Cases KK, I will make sure I get your players down on a list and eventually find something out about them. So, okay, appreciate everybody watching. Streams tomorrow, write-up tomorrow, tweets tomorrow, posts, whatever the X calls them these days. Nick Caley interviewing the Texans on Thursday. Pretty excited about that. Fun stuff ahead. We in the live streams the same way each and every time. This is my hope for you. This is my charge for you as well. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.